So what's really up with Marcus Rashford? He's made the headlines again after his performance against Aston Villa. And generally, you know, the talk about Man United at the moment all seems to be around body language, the effort they're not putting in. None of them seem to be getting the new manager's system. None of them seem to be working hard enough. And there's a lot of focus on Rashford, particularly as he didn't chase down a ball that potentially could have been a tap-in. Certainly what was expected of him. And a lot's made of the fact he's only 24. And I think there's a couple of things going on here. Marcus Rashford started his first team Premier League games under Louis van Gaal. Then it was Jose Mourinho. Then it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And now we got Rangnick. And that's a lot of managers. You know, he's a young lad. He's done okay for England. He's done really well at times, but not so good recently. And there's, like I said, I think there's a couple of things going on here. One, I think it's too many managers for him. In those young years when you're trying to gain Premier League experience, you need some consistency with your managers. Not just your team, with your managers. Your starting position, when you play, when you don't play. He probably genuinely would have benefited from a loan signing. Just going out somewhere to get some proper first team football where he's an out and out striker. He's always kind of been a little bit of a second choice at Man United. And I think actually possibly this is a third thing, and I'll jump in with that right now. He's probably a player that needs to be loved and appreciated. You know, you think he spent some time playing with Zlatan, and he was often on the bench, and Zlatan was the chosen guy for obvious reason. He was a quality player, but he's the guy that can carry himself. You know, Ronaldo's the guy that can carry himself. And maybe Rashford needs a little help in the love department. You know, maybe he needs to be appreciated by the manager a little bit. I know there's a lot of talk about off-pitch distractions, his charity work, the politics. Maybe he's just enjoying himself. You know, they're talking about, I've seen in the papers today, about his reuniting with his childhood sweetheart. Every football player out there has a personal life. I'd have said breakups are more likely to be the cause of a dip in form, not getting back together with somebody. You know, so, but, you know, papers need something for headlines, and I suppose that helps. And I do think that a lot of it is possibly the scrutiny. He's under a lot of scrutiny. They're always asking questions about him and his form, and if he's not getting goals or doesn't look like he's hungry enough, fighting enough, he's always under criticism. Managers always seem to be coming out defending him. And maybe that criticism is justified. So I think the three main points, and I haven't got to my last one yet, the three main points is he's had too many different managers and too many styles of football. And this is a guy still literally trying to find his feet. Often strikers talk about a striker, being a good striker was a confidence game. And confidence comes from consistency. It's how you learn to trust in your ability. Secondly, does he feel loved enough? Is he feeling that appreciation, that he's a valued member of the team? And it's worth noting the difference in Jesse Lingard when he went to West Ham. You know, that change of environment, whatever it was, saw Jesse Lingard get some of his best games back. Definitely played some of his best football at West Ham. And fair play to him, and a credit to West Ham for bringing the best out of him. Thirdly, what's my third point? with Marcus Rashford. Maybe he's just not that good. One of the things I think is very difficult for any footballer, but if you're coming up through Man United Academy and you're coming up through the Premier League and you burst onto the scene and you show great promise, great potential, and you're flying and you're young, because Rashford was young. He's only 24 today, as we speak, he's 24 years old. He's been at Man United senior team for 3 or 4 years. He's young. And one of the things that isn't often talked about is maybe that's as good as he got. Maybe that was his peak. We all think that players peak in their late 20s. No, some players peak early. Some players have their best years in their early 20s. And what we always expect is that player who does well in their early 20s, 20, 21, 22, 23, to just get better and better and better. But that's not always the case. And maybe, just maybe, that's what's happened with Rashford. There is a bit of a body language problem. He doesn't seem to be happy. He just doesn't. But maybe he isn't as good as the expectations that surrounded him. He's a great striker, but it is assumed and expected that he would go on and be world class, one of the best in the world. And it didn't happen. It hasn't materialised. And maybe that's what we're starting to see. Maybe he doesn't have any more in the tank and nothing else to give. And maybe he realises that. And maybe he is feeling lost because of that. It reminds me a little bit of Danny Welbeck when he came up through Man United. The expectations on him. He was supposed to be, he was just going to get better and better and better. And it didn't work out. And then he went to Arsenal and he started off at Arsenal really well. Really, really well. But then it didn't materialise, did it? The first team's position always being on the pitch, it didn't materialise in the end. Because it turned out that the potential, the promise that people said they saw in Danny Welbeck didn't materialise. And maybe this is what's going to happen with Marcus Rashford. The potential, the promise that is expected isn't going to materialise because it's misplaced. Maybe he's just not that good. He's a good striker. He is. Nobody's going to say that he isn't. But maybe the biggest problem facing Marcus Rashford is this is as good as it's going to get for him. And he's not going to get any better. And he's never going to be the world-class striker that he was expected and is still expected to become. Let me know your thoughts.